$1,750. So huge difference, right? It's all about jumping in sooner, monopolizing on a lot of the benefits there are to getting a home today and not waiting that 4 or 5 years. So we won't do too many more case studies here, but essentially the question is, who arranges mortgage insurance? We all know it's mandatory. Once the broker sends the deal in to one of the banks, they will put it on for you automatically. Okay, so it's not something that you have to ask for. It's the law. You have to do it, and they do it for you. Come on in. Yeah. So essentially there are benefits to requesting for, you as a consumer can request Genworth as the insurer. Because I mentioned there are 3 choices, you do have the option to choose. So I'm not going to do a product dump and get into too much of the product nitty gritty. That's why we have John in the room. He is your mortgage specialist, the expert. He'll put you in the right product. Mortgage brokers now are required to do, things like suitability tests and make sure that they're putting you in that perfect dream mortgage of yours, and the realtor is here to put you in your dream home. In terms of the mortgage insurance, it is portable. Let's say you buy one house today, you paid that premium once, and then 5 or 10 years down the road you want to move to a slightly bigger home, or maybe you want to downsize. You can take that mortgage insurance premium with you. So we'll give you credit for what was already paid, okay? So think about, inflation and all that sort of thing. We're going to give you dollar for dollar value on the mortgage insurance premium. So that's a huge, huge benefit, and I really think that it's important to talk about that. The other benefit to dealing with Genworth Financial or requesting us is our Home Buyer Privileges program. Basically, by simply requesting Genworth, if you happen to go high ratio, this is something that's absolutely free that you get access to. So it's a variety of products and services, many of which are associated with the cost of moving. We've got AMJ Campbell Van Lines. You can get discounts on the moving company. How handy is that? We've got Target Vacations, because everyone needs a holiday after you've had that stressful move. We've got Dell Computers, Bell Express View. I mean, the list goes on and on. So these are literally hundreds of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of dollars in savings. So we already talked about the home buying process. I'm just going to reiterate how important it is to have a pre-qualification or have a pre-approval, so you know kind of what you're working with. Speak to your mortgage professional. Make sure that you understand, am I shopping within the right price range? Also, the way you'll be treated when walking in with a pre-approval, you'll be treated differently. You're going to be treated as a serious buyer as opposed to, as we call them, lookers, right? Or nosy neighbors that come to those open houses. So come armed with a pre-approval. In terms of the process from there, essentially, purchase the home. Lender gets the approval for you, and they'll get the approval from us. The mortgage is funded, and then you take over the possession of the home. So in terms of the insured piece, the Genworth part, it's a competitive interest rate. We're always the same across the board as all the other insurers, if not lower in terms of the interest rate. One set of legal fees and one mortgage payment. Today's reality, let's face it, I mean, buying sooner will actually benefit you. No one has a crystal ball. Interest rates, although a lot of the economists would like to suggest are somewhat predictable, they're not predictable over a long period of time, or even a short period of time for that matter. What we do know is that today rates, I don't think they've ever been lower in the history of time. There was a time where if you had a 12% interest rate, you'd think you died and gone to heaven, right? So right now the lowest rate is, I don't even know, John could tell us more so about what the lowest rate is. Also, be mindful. I mean, it's not always just about the rate. Sometimes it is about the product. And again, I'll leave it to John to kind of explain what those differences are. I know we're always rate conscious and rate sensitive, but you know what, kind of buyer beware. I mean, a mortgage is a product as well, so understand kind of what the flexibility is within certain products, right? So, rate is important, but it's not everything. Buying your preferred home, home improvements or education, I mean, those are other expenses that you may be having on the go. So maybe the option to go conventional and put the down payment of 20% down is not an option. So by being able to go high ratio, you have all those other goals that you want to achieve. You can still achieve those goals, right? In terms of homeowner assistance, so the whole purpose of having mortgage insurance on the mortgage is in case something happens where you're unable to pay, we would jump in partnership with the mortgage broker, with whatever financial institution your mortgage happens to be with, and help you out. I mean, show of hands, who's something horrific about the US right now with power of sales and a lot of what's going on? You cannot avoid it. I mean, it's everywhere. You may not know this, but mortgage insurance is not mandatory in the US. So what that means is when clients run into trouble, the banks kind of wash their hands of it and go, sorry, you'll have to hand back your keys and we will put that house back on the market. In Canada, it's mandatory. So about 40% of all mortgages in Canada have insurance on it. In the US, it's approximately 10%. So that's why we're seeing what we're seeing down there. So it's a big difference there. In terms of helping clients, how that works is perhaps the best way to illustrate is by sharing a real story that happened recently. We had a situation where a gentleman who was Genworth insured got a mortgage through his mortgage broker, and something extremely unfortunate happened. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer. We know that he's not going to get out of this situation alive, basically. He had to, in the interim, go on disability insurance. So again, he had life and disability insurance on there through work. And however, that was not enough to get him through or get him by. Imagine being sick and your income has reduced and you just don't have enough to live off of, in terms of paying your mortgage and all the other expenses. So what we agreed to do was we said, look, you know what, he's Genworth insured, we're here to come to that individual's need. So we bridged that gap. We basically covered the shortfall and we were paying the difference to the bank to make sure his mortgage was kept on time. When the inevitable happened, essentially the life insurance would kick in, separate policy, separate product altogether, and would pay the balance of the mortgage. But the point of the matter is, we got that person into their home, something really unfortunate happened outside of their control, and it was the right thing to do. So whether it was, I don't know how much it ended up being the total, it really didn't matter at the end of the day. I mean, we did the right thing for the consumer as well as for the mortgage broker, that was ultimately their client as well as for the bank, right? We kept that mortgage going on their books. So we've assisted over 800 families in 2008. This year alone, year to date, so from January till April, we've assisted approximately 593 families to stay in their home. Can somebody guess what's driving that number up this year? Unemployment. You know what, we're hearing a lot of that, particularly my counterpart who works in the Windsor market. Big manufacturing town, right? So with a lot of the car plants shutting down, we're seeing reduction of income. So, what do you do for somebody when they're having a temporary setback? You help them, right? That's why the insurance is there. So sometimes it's a matter of covering 3, 4, maybe 5 mortgage payments until they get back on their feet and get working again. Oftentimes what we'll do is we'll do a side agreement with them and say, look, when you do get back on your feet, we will, give you 3 years to pay us a portion of that back. Perhaps we'll forgive a portion of it. So everything is case by case, and we looked at everything from a holistic standpoint and what makes the most sense for that particular client. Okay. So that's our website, genworth.ca. It is a public website. We have a variety of tools and resources for you as the consumer to go to. We have another website which you can access through our first website, but homeownership.ca. It has a variety of mortgage calculators. You can crunch the numbers for yourself just to see what the benefits are. We have a rent versus buying calculator, so it kind of speaks to a lot of what Chris talked about. And we have a house hunting check sheet, so things to look for when actually kind of taking that brave move forward. And it's not just a brave move, it's an extremely exciting move, having gone through it myself. This is kind of what that mortgage planning tool talks about. It's a little bit jumbled here on the slide, but it kind of goes through, depending on how many years you want your mortgage to be stretched out to, what the costs are, etc., and what your payments would be. And like I said, we do affordability calculations and a variety of other, I could sit here for an hour probably talking about all the little neat things they have on that site. So I really encourage you, even spend 20 minutes, after supper one night and kind of fiddle around with it. It's very user friendly. So just to summarize, I hope if anything you're leaving here with peace of mind that purchasing a home and jumping in is the right thing to do right now. I think I've made enough compelling arguments to present the reason as to why that is, as well as peace of mind. I think we've highlighted what some of the differences are here in Canada versus the US. So, take everything with a grain of salt in terms of what the media is throwing out at you. Unfortunately, the reality is there's a lack of stories to tell in the news, right, and lots of time to fill. And oftentimes they'll kind of over-exaggerate, what's going on out there. It's not great, but we're a lot different here in Canada, right? There's a lot of differences here from a regulatory standpoint. Also, in terms of